Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
And welcome to another new movie review. Today we're reviewing, finally, the Sin City sequel. We have been waiting for this movie for years and years and years.
And years and years.
And years. Yeah, about 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be about right.
And finally, we've got the Sin City sequel, Sin City: A Dame to Kill For. Dame to Kill For is one of, if not the most popular of the Sin City stories, as far as I know. And finally got that adapted, as well as some other stuff and some kind of new material. The movie is kind of like the 300 sequel, both a prequel and a sequel, all at the same time, though kind of works a little bit better here because it's in sort of the same style as the first one in that it's non-linear and the vignettes don't all happen in sequence. So I really kind of think that you could take the two movies, put them together, and in certain ways, and this is saying nothing about the quality of it, but in a certain way, it's kind of one long movie, right? Because there's a lot of there is some stuff in this in the prequel material that informs the first story.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of interesting that they went that way with it.
It was very cool.
So I just real quick synopsis. I mean, I won't say everything about every vignette, but the big main kind of, I would say probably the longest of the vignettes and the meat of it, or at least it felt that way in the theater, was of course the Dame to Kill For story, which is about a woman who manipulates men to get whatever she wants, and she's somewhat of an empathic metamorph and is able to become whatever men want her to be, and a lot of the other vignettes kind of play into those ideas of power and manipulation and of women using their feminine wiles to control men, and men trying to use their physical power to control women. Very much about gender roles, very much about the differences between men and women, and what we can do to each other, and that kind of stuff that Frank Miller is always really into. And you see a lot of the characters that we kind of fell in love with in the first movie coming back and returning, and a lot of them mixing that you didn't get to see mix in the first one, which was something I really enjoyed about it. Sarah, how did you feel about this one?
Well,
and I should mention real quick too, by the way, that people will be very surprised by this, but Sarah loves Sin City.
Yeah, it's not. You wouldn't think it's my thing. I generally don't go for these kinds of movies, but for whatever reason, I love Sin City, and I felt like this movie, with this movie, I was watching a continuation of the first movie, kind of like what you said in your opening, actually.
But you're saying that in a really positive, like it's consistent and it works that way. Wow,
exactly.
Great.
Where, okay, not only did the style follow through, not only did we get characters who were the same in each, and kind of, it was a progression of their characters in some sense. In other sense, it was, we get to see the progression of their characters into the first movie in the prequel sense. But I thought the storytelling was also on par. I thought the acting was definitely on par. It was just, I felt like it could have just been put together, jammed together, and you'd still get a cohesive whole.
Do you think it's too late? Was it difficult for you to be as with it and to love it as much as you did the first one because there's so many years in between? Given that you're praising it for that,
I don't know. I don't know if time necessarily plays a role in that. I think I still like the first one better, but I'm trying to figure out if it's because I've seen it so many times, and have just grown to
Well, that was
have
the
an
first time you got the
appreciation for it.
novelty of that style,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And there were just things I really picked up on that I hadn't seen anywhere before in any other film. And in this one, well, it's just the first again.
Yeah.
And, it's awesome like the first one again, which is good. But it not as much of the novelty, even though they ramp up a lot of sex and violence even more than they had in the first one. It's definitely it has the same tone.
That's
A
another
very
thing it
similar
has in
tone.
common with the 300 sequel, is that all that stuff was ramped up and kind of turned up to 11. Did that bug you? Like, did you think it was too much, or did it was it appropriate for the things they were doing?
I think it was appropriate for the things they were doing. I mean, I noticed it, obviously, because it was ramped up quite a bit more.
A lot more nudity this time.
A lot more nudity. I think I was more bothered by certain violent things that happened, just because of the kind of violent things.
I'm just
it
making an
was.
observation. I'm not even saying that's a thing. I know.
Yeah.
I know. A lot of people, especially in Europe, are always like, "Why do you Americans make such a big deal out of nudity and violence isn't a thing?" I'm just saying that like there was more of that.
Yeah.
It's hard to say it was more violent. But I think, here's the thing, I think more of the blood was the color red.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, because in the first one it was so stylized, and I think almost all the blood.
There is some red blood, but it seems like
Yeah.
in the grossest and most grotesque kinds of places, but the most grotesque and like really violent places, it's white or some other color, and it's stylized, and
it's all super stylized. In this one,
I definitely
think there are
cringed a
places
lot more this
where
time.
it gets a bit more real, and
again, just making an observation. I think it's very effective. There are places where I'm cringing and feeling like, no, I had to cringe at that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, like I was okay with that.
Yeah.
But as you said, I definitely noticed it.
Yeah. I'd say my favorite part about this movie is that it's the Marv movie. It's not
He does get a
the
lot to
movie
do.
about Marv. It's just the movie with Marv.
That's actually a really interesting way to put it, isn't it? Because he gets a full-blown story in the first movie, and in this one he's more of a secondary character, but he's on screen a lot more.
Everywhere,
Yeah.
and it's great.
And you love Marv.
Yes, they started this movie off right.
And I love Mickey
Marv.
Rourke, so I mean, I really enjoyed getting to see him that much.
Yes, so more
We
Marv
get a
is
lot more Mickey Rourke, and we also get a lot more Senator Rourke.
This is true, and it's kind of funny when people keep talking about wanting to kill more.
Yeah, every time they're like, I want to kill Rourke. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, he's your friend. Oh, that okay.
So alternatively, my probably my least favorite thing about this movie is what they did to
Nancy?
Nancy. Yeah. I can't.
I'm with you.
I can't. Marv and Nancy were my two favorite characters in the first one.
In Nancy?
Yeah.
Even over Hardigan?
Even over her, I loved Hardigan.
Wow.
He's up there too.
Wow, really?
I really liked I liked what they did with her character in the first one. And so in the second one, those were the two I was watching for. And
it's definitely my favorite Jessica Alba performance. I mean, like, I don't usually like her, and I thought in both of these she was fine.
Yeah, definitely. And my problem with this one, I don't know if it's a problem. I don't know if it's where they took her. The reason I don't like it is because it's a taste issue, where I just wouldn't like where that character, them doing that to
You like
the character.
her too much for it to go there.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if, I don't know if it's a story. I just, a story thing, I don't know, I can't separate it yet. So I just know that I don't like what they did to the character at the end. Not in a hate sort of way, but just kind of, I wish they hadn't done that to her. But...
Did you think it made sense? Like, does it work? Or are you still, you just can't decide?
I buy it.
Yeah.
I just don't want to. Yeah. So, but I think the whole thing, it was just, the vignettes were really good. I loved the Dame to Kill For story, and I liked the other one.
With Joseph Gordon-Levitt, with the casino,
with the gambling.
I'm sorry, with the gambling, and he's a card shark, and
I thought that played really well and gave us a lot of insight into the senator's character.
Yeah.
So it was really
and also
cool to
kind
get
of
that
a
in there.
part of the whole. I just thought of this part of the whole like sin thing that you didn't really get with the first one. Like we've got a lot of sex and drugs and prostitution. Where's the gambling?
Yeah.
Like the first movie doesn't really have that so much. Yeah. Like this one we've got a whole story about it. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think the best stylistic stuff comes in that vignette.
Yeah.
Like the color, like the black and the playing cards.
Oh, those
and
were cool.
I thought it looked neat, but I also thought that there was a lot of really cool, like symbolic stuff going on in the way they did colors and the way they chose to emphasize certain things.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for that
Definitely.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, you want to flip your sign?
Yes, I should. Even though I'm guessing people probably can tell, I'm feeling this movie. Go watch it about 3 times.
So it's obligatory. It's part of our format. Yeah.
Feeling it.
Sarah, this movie made me feel nostalgic, energized, and then slightly depressed. At the end, and for the same reason that you're saying. And again, I don't know how much I'm criticizing it about that. I just left with an empty feeling.
Yeah.
And I think I'm supposed to, but okay, I'm going to say this. I didn't like it as much as you did. Mm-hmm. I liked it. And I was quite happy with it, and I was actually a lot more happy with it than I thought I would be, because I thought we were going to go into half a really good movie and half a Frank Miller crazy fast. I really was worried that we were going to get some Spirit kind of thrown into Sin City, because I knew we were going to get some original material.
Sure.
Or as far as I've read, and I haven't done a lot of research on this lately, but when it was in production, I read that, and here's the thing, I'm familiar with Sin City just on film. I've not read much of it. I read part of Dame to Kill for a long time ago. That's how much. So I know what it looks like, but like my Sin City knowledge is relegated to the movie, and as far as I know, it's so close that you can, you know it. You know, you understand that flavor and everything if you've watched that movie. But anyway, what I had read was that some of it was material that they pulled directly from the graphic novels, like they did all of the first one, and that some of it was new, and it's Frank Miller writing now, and I'm always kind of worried when that happens, because he's just not as good as he used to be, and he goes to weird left field places. I'm happy to report that some of the original stuff was quite good, but some of it does still kind of pop out, and so it's a little more uneven. Because of that, and it's definitely an inferior film to the first one, I think, because of that. I think the last vignette is the weakest, and not just because I'm with you, I couldn't decide what I thought of that, but there's also just things in it I just straight up don't like. I think the writing is subpar to the rest of the movie. There's some really weird dialogue in that last in that last bit, and I just didn't think it was as punchy. I didn't think it was quite. It just wasn't as good. And I thought that...
I think a lot of it was, you could expect where it was going. It was a little bit predictable.
You know, that wasn't my problem with it. It's just there was an element, not to give anything away, there was an element
That's unpredictable.
with Nancy's character that had to do with John Hartigan that I didn't like, that I just I didn't like that it was there. I thought it was going a little bit too far in a potentially pseudo-supernatural direction. I didn't care for that stuff. And I also just thought that some of the dialogue was off. In that section in particular. I loved Joseph Gordon-Levitt and that whole casino section with the cards and stuff. I liked the message there. I liked the all of the exploration and discussion about power and who wields it and how to deal with people who have power, and how to be smart enough to not get taken advantage of or hurt. And I thought that the movie, as well as the first one, did a really good job of thematically connecting the vignettes and not just connecting them story-wise. It did feel like the vignettes themselves were crossed more story-wise just because a lot of the characters that you saw in the first one you immediately see here, and you recognize them, and you don't have to wait to be introduced to them. Yeah. So it feels like more of it is crossing, I think, than it even is, just because you feel like, and I agree with your board, that it's almost like that movie kept going. Yeah. So it's like, oh, I've seen that person, so now we're crossing the vignettes. There were places where I had to remind myself that they weren't subplots. I mean, that they weren't just separate subplots happening at the same time, that we actually were dealing with vignettes and in different time periods, because so much of it's connected, but also so much of it's connected thematically. Like I really like the parallels between some of the major female characters in this. I think that the Dame to Kill For, that character is paralleled a lot with Nancy, and they both manipulate men different ways for different reasons, and you can argue the validity of why they do what they do, and whether they're ever validated, and all that kind of stuff. I really liked all that. It's still really good melodrama. It's important to mention that Sin City is a melodrama. It works by a different set of rules. It's this really heightened kind of universe, and the laws of physics are different. People can take a lot more bullets, that kind of stuff. But also, people talk in this incredibly melodramatic kind of 1940s noirish kind of way, and people are archetypes, and they're supposed to be, and we explore through this exaggerated way kind of real life stuff in its most down, in its most bare bones kind of way, and this continues to do that, and I think it does a really good job with it. Overall, I liked it a lot, but I don't think it's as good as the first one. I didn't have as much fun as I did with the first one. I wasn't laughing as much. The first movie, I found myself laughing quite a bit. This one I thought was darker, a lot darker, and they're both very dark in that they're black comedies. If that makes any sense. When we think black comedy, I think we think something a little bit different, but I guess I just mean that the situation is always really bleak and kind of horrible, but then that's juxtaposed with just really strange things that make you laugh.
You're laughing at things that you maybe shouldn't be laughing at, but it's actually funny.
But it's actually funny, You're laughing at this ramped up over the top violence, and they find ways to make you cringe while you're laughing and feeling bad about yourself for it, and that's kind of a fun experience. This does that, but not as much. More often when I was cringing, it was the way I would cringe in a regular movie. I found that going on. Anyway, still I'm feeling it, most certainly. And I wanted to talk about a couple little random things. So we've got Dennis Haysbert playing, I think that's his name, the guy who played the president in 24, taking over for Michael Clarke Duncan. As Manute, because of course a couple years back Michael Clarke Duncan unfortunately passed away, and he had to be recast, and it's really sad that he was recast because that character got so much more to do in this movie. I couldn't believe, I was like, oh, that is really sad. I was surprised that he got replaced with an actor I knew. I expected it to be like somebody out of nowhere, because who looks like Michael Clarke Duncan, right? Because Michael Clarke Duncan was the spitting image of the character in the comic. It was just like, holy crap, that guy existed and was a talented actor. Dennis Haysbert is a really talented actor. He's also one of my favorite TV actors. I really like him, and was really surprised to see him in that role, because he's not as big. I think he did a pretty good job. He's not Michael Clarke Duncan. He didn't have the same kind of presence.
If you're not paying attention, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference. I mean...
you're right, if you're not paying it... But he's not as menacing.
Yeah.
And it was fun to see him play against type, because he doesn't play characters like that. I'm not saying that Dennis Haysbert is not as good of an actor as Michael Clarke Duncan. He's a wonderful actor. He's a different kind of actor. He does different things. Just to see him as the heavy, I was really surprised by that.
He really did a good job.
So that was neat.
Yeah.
I'm thinking what other things we should mention. We get to see as far as Sarah and I can tell, we were talking about this. We were trying to linearly put this together, and we think that the Dame to Kill For story is linearly the first thing that happens.
Yeah,
and that's really interesting.
Yeah, because there are certain key things that you see in that vignette that are completely changed by things that happened in the first movie.
Well, and we're sitting there going why doesn't Manute have his eye out yet, and stuff like that, and it's because this happened earlier.
Yeah.
So I thought it was kind of fun that we continued that going on. I think that's a lot of why we're saying it feels like the movie just kept going.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't feel out of place. Do you think that the first movie feels more complete having this? Because I'd say so with certain characters.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly helps inform certain characters and certain events. And so, in that sense, I would have to say, yeah. I mean, the first movie... with being a vignette thing, I always felt like there are just pieces that we don't know about these characters, and they're just not fleshed out. And so this one definitely adds pieces to the puzzle, but I still feel like, hey, I want more from this universe. I want more pieces to be fleshed out and to get more into this.
Yeah, it really feels like you could just keep going and do more of them. Because with the first one, it really feels like it's about the city more than these characters. And this one, it feels like it's more about the characters in the city, I thought.
Yeah,
because it felt much more like a direct sequel, even though there's prequel material in it, than I expected. Mm-hmm. I mean, I expected to see, and mostly just because I saw the cast list and I knew who was in it, I of course expected to see certain characters pop back in again, but I didn't know we were going to get direct sequel material to things that happened in the first one. I didn't know that we were going to follow up the Yellow Bastard story, you know what I mean, and be like, here's what happens after that, and deal with all that stuff, and deal with the Senator and stuff. It's neat that they went there, and I didn't feel like it felt too sequel because of that. It kind of felt like just the story keeps going, and it didn't feel too much like the same thing again, where it's like, you know, plot points repeating themselves and things like that. But part of that's because some of this was pre-existing material. So I just kind of wish that we had gotten this a few years back, and that then we could, partly so that Michael Clark Duncan would have been in it, but that's in hindsight, naturally. But it would have been nice to get that so that maybe we could have already had a third one by now. Because I kind of, and I mean, I'm saying this knowing full well that Frank Miller writing new material is a trepidatious kind of thing to suggest, but I got to the end of this and I went, I kind of want more of it. Mm-hmm. And I think part of it is because, again, without giving anything away, I left with no optimism. Mm-hmm. And the message at the end of the film really kind of seems to be, this city's bad for everyone, and you're not going to be nobody can get out of this city without being very negatively changed by it. And that's why I said I didn't have as much fun with it, because I left with kind of a pit in my stomach thinking, oh, that's really sad. And then the first movie ends on a downer too, but there's still at least one character that you feel like can maybe help to change the city and turn it into something better. Yeah. And when you get to the end of this one, it feels hopeless. And I think that's the point.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know that I'm criticizing it. I'm just saying
that's the feeling you get.
That's the feeling I got. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that cameo that was in there that, I mean, I didn't know that he was going to be in this movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost want to leave it as a surprise for people that haven't looked at the cast list yet.
That's why I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, there is somebody. there are a couple of people that I didn't expect to see in this at all, and there's some great stunt casting. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm not going to give it away. You can go look at IMDb if you want to see the stunt casting, and you'll probably know who we're talking about when you look at it. But there are a couple of people where it's given away right at the beginning in the credits, of course, because it does just what the first movie does, where it makes you see everybody's name that's in it individually. Love, by the way. I think that's really cool and very old-fashioned. That's really going back to kind of the kind of noirish, hard-boiled way of doing it. We don't get all the credits up front, but we do get all the players, and I love that. But yeah, there's one, and it is a cameo. He's there for like 3 minutes. I thought that was hilarious. I thought he was great.
Yeah.
But yes, I don't want to. But one of our favorite actors.
Yeah.
But anyway, did you have anything else you wanted to bring up?
I don't think I can bring up anything else without going too in depth and giving things away.
Okay.
So I should probably stop now.
Well, thanks a bunch for watching. We sure appreciate it. Sarah and I are both, of course, recommending the film. Really happy that we're recommending this one. I was really leery about it.
Especially being so long after the fact.
After it, yeah.
And a sequel.
I love how much of the cast they got back.
So good. Yeah.
It's so cool that most everybody was able to come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody looks good. Yeah, I mean, this many years later, everybody looks good.
Yeah. It almost feels like there's very little time between the two movies.
It's really cool. I bet when people look at this a long time from now, if they watch both, and I don't know how this is going to perform. I've been kind of worried about it. I kind of don't think it's going to perform great, but I guess we'll see. Just because it's so long after the fact, I kind of think that down the road, when people a lot younger than us go back to both of these, if they don't look it up, they won't know how many years are in between. I'm very impressed they did that. So I don't know. But I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
overall. Well, thanks for watching, folks. We sure appreciate you, and I will be back next week with somebody to do another new movie review. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
And we will see you next time. Bye.